Code of conduct.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I put in extra work that just can't be found. I took the sword out the stone, wasn't a thing. Look me in my eyes cause I'm a king. Look me in my eyes cause I'm a king. God made me punch in inaccurate numbers. My castle won't crumble. What I tackle will fumble. I've been a leader when they ain't see it, but now my feet is up. According to me, royalty didn't end with King Tut. Crown on my head, clouds is at my legs. Big says sky is the limit. I look down on the ledge. I push the bar like I'm opening a cell. Hands in my cookie jar, you won't come out with a single nail. I need all of mine. The weight of my shoulders won't fit on a scale. What's a king to a giant? Well, Goliath fell. Even if we playin' chess, dog, this king can't be checked. I make all my moves on the board, I invented my steps. I'm a king, the blood of a ruler. I feel like Mansa Musa. Make your squad disappear like landing by the Bermuda. Triangle, look at it from my angle. I'm a king, the closest thing to being one of God's angels. I'm a king. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I put in extra work that just can't be found. I took the sword out the stone, wasn't a thing. Look me in my eyes cause I'm a king. Look me in my eyes cause I'm a king.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is the Code of Conduct with the King podcast. I am your host, Jay Smith the King, and this show is being brought to you on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network, presented by Picasso Pizza. Treat yourself to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso, we are Buffalo Pizza, shipping local and nationwide. Order online at PicassoPizza.net. I'm gonna tell you, y'all gonna get me messed up with got the Griselda thing in there. I'm having fun now. What's going on, Big O?
Man, that opening hits hard, Spence. That thing hits hard.
Thank you, man. I got to get energy, and sometimes you know how it is. You've been in radio and you've been
no doubt.
You got to get yourself into it, and that song, the intro gets me there. So I appreciate you saying that.
It's kind of like back in the day when you played. There's always something to get you going. As soon as the anthem goes, that's kind of like go time, man. That's a trigger. That's the time to go perform and get after it and have some fun.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you, man. I know, so now you're officially part of Buffalo Rumblings. I know we're going to be doing some rebranding, but you and Sarah Larson, and it was Colt doing the three-man rush. Now we're going to kind of try to switch some things up, and you and Sarah are going to be doing I don't know what we're going to call it. Do you have a name yet for the show?
Well, we might still call it the three-man rush. I don't know. We got different things going on. Sarah and I got to talk. I'm pretty confident that Sarah and I can do this thing ourselves, but I've got a wild card in the mix that we can talk about, and maybe we'll keep the name of the show, maybe we won't. I don't know, but I'm excited about it. I love doing the show with Sarah. She does a great job, and it's been awesome. Again, blessings I get to be a part of the network.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. It's so far it's been great, and I know it's only going to get better. And the knowledge that you bring, similarly to what everybody's favorite offensive lineman from back in the day. Everybody knows who we're talking about here.
Yes,
the both of you, I think, bring a ton of good information and a ton of knowledge and insight that we just don't typically get. So I appreciate you being with us. And tonight, man, I'm looking forward to the show. So let's get right into it. And look, the Browns game this past Sunday, I have concerns, and I feel like a Debbie Downer for saying that, but I'm just being honest. The way I see it, I feel like there's some concerns. So first, before we get into the nitty gritty of it, overall, how do you feel about the performance? How do you feel about the Bills coming out of that game and now heading into Thanksgiving matchup?
I mean, I said this on Monday. I agree with Josh Allen when he said a win is a win is a win, right? We used to say it all the time. A win is cash money. And they won that football game under what I know it's hard for people to think this is. People think it's easy to do to just up your roots and go from a home game, hop on a plane, leave your family behind who you don't know if they're getting out of the house or not. What if there's an emergency, right? I got my kids at the house, my wife, you worry about them. There's a lot that went into it. So for the Bills to go on the road like that, on a Friday, make the decision, and there, or Thursday night, they make the decision and they go to Detroit and beat Cleveland. That's a big deal. And this is the other thing, Spence. They barely practiced on Wednesday. They didn't practice very much Thursday. Friday, they did it virtually. So actual live reps and walking through. Now that would have killed me. I'm a very visual person. I got to feel it. I need to go out and do those reps. I got to see it. I got to feel it. And if I'm not doing that, I'm staring at a computer screen. I mean, this is a dude with ADD and things like that. Like that doesn't,
Right.
we're doing good now because we're talking, right? But it's hard. It's hard to do that. So I don't have a problem with them, man. I really don't. I think they did well. Now, I'm sure we are going to break this thing down a little bit deeper. And I'd love to hear what you're concerned about, but I'm happy with the W. I think it was a big deal considering what happened.
Well, see, so obviously I'm a dumb fan here. So like I'm
No,
looking at it from
you're
the
not a
standpoint.
dumb fan. You're not a dumb.
Well,
Say
no,
that.
well, I don't mean it really that I'm dumb, but I'm more
Right.
so it's like I look at it from the standpoint of like, okay, these guys practice every week. These guys have been playing football their entire lives. For the most part, we have somewhat of a young roster in certain areas, but we have veterans and we have guys that's been
Right.
doing this. So I didn't think that the mispractice would really be a lot, and I understand that it snowed and there was uncertainty about where the game would be. But so you're telling me that a mispractice actually it bothers or it can disrupt the flow of the game for the team.
Well, let's look at the first 4 drives of the game, Spence. I mean, you're looking at 3 and out, 4. You're looking at 3 and out, 4 plays in 3 drives in a row.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sign of a team that's not real sure of themselves. I don't think Cleveland was going out there and was inventing football that we had not seen before. Obviously they can get after the passer a little bit, and a third series they did have a sack, and then we're getting some pressure on Josh, but still, 3 drives in a row, 3 and outs. That's a timing issue. That's a rust thing. And then what happened? The 4th drive, they get the field goal after 11 plays. They open up the second half of the long series, and next thing you know, they start rolling. So, I mean, I saw a football team that was building into it as they got a little more comfortable with who they were playing against, and they could see some things and make some adjustments.
Okay, well, I mean, I get that because so speaking to certain players who I've spoken to this week, they've basically said that for them it was just it just didn't feel like the game started like it normally does for them. So I didn't know, again, like I said, from outside looking in, I'm not a player,
Right.
so for me it's like, man, these guys, they've been doing this their whole life, so one mispractice shouldn't be. But I can see, because one thing that I do see, I know we've had a couple games where things didn't go our way, but typically we start fast. We do. I think they script that first drive or the first couple drives pretty well. And maybe that is the thing. Like maybe they practice those first drives and they script those. And then because they weren't able to do it this week, it just didn't play out the way we looked. And second half, it looked like a little bit different of a team come the third quarter. So maybe that is the case. I don't, but here are my concerns. I'll tell you what my first concern is. Josh Allen, I don't think the elbow is really the thing that's bothering him. You look at the game prior to that against the Vikings, and he still threw it 40 something times. And he, I know the last throw wasn't exactly where he wanted to put it, where, it was intercepted. And if you look at it from the all-22 view, it looks like if he would have led Gabe, it was a touchdown and game would have been over. But I don't think the elbow is what's bothering Josh. I think Josh is in his head. And when Josh is in his head, I feel like that's when, we kind of revert back to an offense that's not as explosive, that is a little timid. And I enjoyed, obviously, most Bills fans do. I enjoyed the games where we go out and we're dominating. And it's like, no, we're here and we're about to beat you down and we're about to put up 35 on you without question. I want to see that offense. And my concern is if Josh isn't the one driving that bus, I don't think that it consistently gets there. I know we kind of got there because Tyler Bass made 6 field goals. Like, I mean, it was an amazing game for him. But I want those 30 points. I want 35 points because we're scoring touchdowns and not getting 58-yarder or 59-yard field goal.
Yes.
I want touchdowns.
No, and I agree with that. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think Josh is I agree with you 100%. I don't think the elbow is his issue. I really don't. I don't think the elbow is his issue. I do think it's in his head, and a lot of it, I think, is he feels he has to do too much. And if you look at some of these young quarterbacks nowadays, especially in college football, it's a tempo thing, man. It's got to be tempo. They want tempo. They're up on the ball. They're going. Josh very much has to get into the game early to be effective. I think that's why it's a big part of his effectiveness is running, is going out and making plays with his feet. It gets him in the game. And I don't know if it's he feels he needs to do too much, or if the other team has the ability to frustrate him and keep him in the pocket, then does that play a hand in it as well? But I think that he's got to get rolling downhill. He's got to he's got to get going with his feet and making big plays. I agree with you. I don't think something's not right, and I don't know if it's with the way Dorsey calls plays or it's what he calls, or there's that language barrier between him and I said in his new OC that he didn't have with Dybul. But there's something there that is a little bit off. But I think he's going to be fine. He showed flashes of greatness throughout the year. His issue is turning the football over. I don't think he called that hero ball. I think he just made some bad mistakes. But look at this team. They've been first in the NFL in offense the entire season until now. They're second. So we are really grinching about a team that is first and second in the league in offense.
Okay, fair, but in fairness to the fans that say they're concerned, I think if you look at that, if you look at the entire, so what are we? It's week 12. So you look at the games that we've played. I think early in the season heavily will skew now what we've seen over the last few weeks, because if you look at from the second half of that Packers game, the Jets game, and even the Vikings game to some extent, like I said, Josh moved the ball. But if you look at those games and then now this past game, Josh didn't have the best game that we've seen from him. So I don't know. I feel like, yes, you're right. We're second now in the league, but I think that's because week 1, we blew out the Rams. Week 2, we blew out the Titans. And so I think we've had kind of some leeway there. And now even to fall to number 2, we were ahead by so much that the fact that we fell to number 2, I just don't want to see us fall into a bit of a pit to where it might be tough to get back out.
I understand. I also think you have to take into consideration who you're battling with for 1 and 2. It's the most prolific offense in the NFL for the last couple of years in the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's some really good competition. But I think maybe too, Spence, and I want to hear your theories on this because it's something I've kind of noticed. I think that, you look at this game this weekend, and we had success running the football with the running back position. Cook had 86 yards on 11 carries. Motor had 86 yards on 18 carries. He averaged 4.8. Cook over 7.8. You look at these numbers and you say, okay, are we going back to now taking what they give us? If we're actually like, if we got teams that are playing Josh and trying to take that pass away and frustrating him, is this now the point where we have to start running the ball a little bit more, keep teams honest, and get some pressure off of Josh and then allow him to make plays? Because I don't fall in the group with we can't run the football. I think we can run the football. And I don't think it's the fact that Josh is out there scrambling a ton. He makes plays with his feet scrambling, but we call his number a lot in the running game.
Yeah.
And, he is a running back for us. And that's just how it is. I mean, and as the college game progresses, we're going to see more and more quarterbacks like that in the league. So is this now the time that we really got to go ahead and start pounding the football? We got Spencer Brown back. I think we're more physical up front when he plays. I think Cook is going to be a great running back. Let's get the fumble in the first play that he was ever in out of our heads and start feeding them. It's only going to make Singletary better. And now we're starting to narrow that thing down a little bit. And we're getting our couple running backs. We're getting things in, and we're starting to get a little bit more, I would say, balanced in what we're doing offensively.
Well, no, I agree with you 100% there. I've been one of the guys that's been saying for the last couple of years, we need a run game so it takes some of the pressure off of Josh. I understand that, Josh is a weapon in the run game, so you want to keep using him that way. But right. I also don't want Josh to be the guy that has to throw for 350 and then rush for 85 for us to win. I want it to be where if he makes some plays and if they call a couple reds, now I would like to see us use him more in the red zone. I don't think we've had red zone issues, and I don't think that you can look at the run game or the passing game and say, well, this one works and this one doesn't. I would like to see more of that jet sweep is the wrong word, that quarterback sweep where they have like a couple linemen and Gabe Davis or maybe Dawson Knox out in front of them. But outside of that, I agree with you. I think the run game this past Sunday, now, I don't know if it's just that the Cleveland Browns just don't have a good defense and they're just not,
right.
Or if the Bills showed up. I think Devin Singletary has looked good over the last maybe 4 or 5 weeks. He may have had a couple moments where he didn't, but I love Devin Singletary, and I think he's a lot better than most Bills fans and maybe even the team give him credit for. I think the team lately has been giving him the ball, but he's running bigger than he is. He's 5'8", 5'7",
Yes.
205 pounds.
Right.
And he's running like he's 30 pounds heavier. And he finishes runs violently, man. Like he's carrying guys 3-4 yards past the initial contact. I love it. I absolutely love it. So no, I'm with you. I think the run game is there. But let me ask you this: when it comes to the run game, did we only trade for Nyheim Hines to return punts and kickoffs, or are we going to see him actually get involved in the run game and maybe even possibly like that slot role in the passing attack?
I think it's a great point, Spence. I've been waiting for him to break out offensively as well. Is it a slow learn? Are we that complex that we don't know how to insert him or use him in the offense? I think we'll see him more and more as the year goes on, but you're right. I'd like to see him a little more offensively, but yes, I think right now it's looking like a huge part of that trade was to get him in the return game, because we did not really have a true weapon or somebody that could catch it, return it, and go touch the pad on the goalpost. And it's nice to have that guy now. But no, I agree with you. I want to see him catching the ball out of the backfield and all those things. Now, I will say, also, sometimes he's got to learn how to put, he's got to pass block a little bit. He's not out there all the time just to run routes. So now is that an issue where usually when running backs get held back in the passing game, a lot of times it's because of protection and, maybe being a little bit confused in what you have in the pass pro. So I don't know. Obviously, you're not pass prone if you're out going and getting, catching routes either. So I think he's a guy that you can take out of the backfield and empty sets and play him in the slot. I think you get some mismatches with him on offense as far as playing, linebackers trying to cover him. So hopefully they get more and more of that as the season goes on. But yeah, I think we'll progress towards him as he learns a little bit more.
My man Thomas, first of all, if you haven't been around and you haven't seen the last 2 weeks, my man Thomas has an amazing show that he does on Monday for Buffalo Rumblers. Now, prior to Buffalo Rumblers, he was doing it and he built a heck of a show and a heck of a brand with Buffalo Late Night. Please check him out on Monday nights and then Sundays directly after the game. And I don't know if he's going to do it this week for Thanksgiving, but directly after the game, he does the Buffalo Rumblings call-in show where you can call in and talk about how you feel about the game and get your opinion put out there. But my man Thomas says the last few weeks are the typical McDermott mid-season lull. Like they'll pull it out, or they will pull out of it and put it together a monster final 7 games of the season head into the playoffs. How do you feel about that comment? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I agree. I agree with it. I think McDermott's not a – now, granted, I haven't been in a locker room with him. I have been in a meeting room with him, but he doesn't seem like that over-the-top fiery guy. He's a guy that's very composed. He doesn't seem to get out of his head too much. You got to understand, who do you play college football with? Other than McDermott, probably my favorite head football coach in the NFL. They both played at William & Mary together. My man Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. I love Mike Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin
is my favorite.
Yes, he is. He's actually mine as well. To be honest with you, I was trying to be nice because we're talking Bills, but he is mine as well. Same type of guy. Very calm. Never going to come out in the public and embarrass a guy. But like I said, I haven't been behind closed doors or in the locker room with him, but I think he is a guy that's very much even keel, and they'll pull out of this. I mean, it's part of it. But guys, also we're up to 17 games now. 17 games and 2 bye weeks, right? I mean, that's an eternity. That's an eternity. Yeah. I said it the other day on the show. It's not a marathon anymore. It's an ultra marathon. And it's hard, man. The human mind is a crazy thing. The human body is a crazy thing. It's tough to stay up for that many weeks in a row.
My man Daryl Dome says, I agree with Jerry. You saw that quality on display when Steph was in his feelings on the sideline. That's a good point. I want to bring this up. My man over at NFL Network, Cameron Wolf, asked Stephon Diggs some questions. I want your opinion on this. Let me know. Well, first, let me play the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Steph, what a wild week this was for y'all, trying to escape with the snowstorm, coming off a 2-game losing streak. But what does it feel like to cap it off with a win like this one?
Yeah, journeyman a little bit. You had some trials and tribulations during the week. It felt good to come out here and get a W, seeing everything that happened. So just trying to stay consistent. You know, when everything is thrown at us, which way or whatever, staying consistent and focus on the W is all that matters.
I know early on in the game, offense started off a little slowly. There was a scene on there where you're talking to McDermott on the sideline, and the offense picked up from there. That conversation sparked the offense a little bit.
But he always has the right words to say. You know, my head coach does a great job of keeping everybody level-headed and everybody in the right space to go out there and execute. So, like, execution brings effort, effort brings execution. So just got to stay consistent at it. We got on a little bit of road. We got to keep it going.
Obviously, 4-game turnaround for you guys. Thanksgiving. What do you guys do to get your body ready after, you know, what's been an up and down week?
I'm going back to my routine. I got to speed it up a little bit this week, but luckily we came out here, no hurts or no bruises, so I feel pretty good. Hopefully the guys feel pretty good, and we just got to get back on the grind.
Appreciate you, Steph.
Thanks, boss. Appreciate you. Have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say I love how disappointed Jacoby Brissett looked at the end of that clip walking off the field. I just want to say that. But secondly, before so Daryl brought up that Steph was kind of in his feelings on the sideline, and then in this post-game interview, Cameron Wolf asked him about it, and he says, you know, Coach McDermott just always has the right thing to say, and you know, he kind of keeps guys level-headed and he keeps guys in the game. And I know some people tried to kind of put that out there as like, oh, here we go again. Stephon Diggs doing the same thing he did in with the Vikings, and he's not happy and blah, 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 blah. I didn't see that at all. And then I think this interview showed that it wasn't that. I think Sean McDermott is an underrated leader of men. And I know, you know, we've won some games over the last few seasons and we've consistently made the playoffs, but why, from your perspective, why would you say Sean McDermott is an underrated leader? And I guess I don't even know what word to use, because I feel like star power is, when you have star power, is different coaching stars than it is just coaching guys that's in the league. And I hate to say it that way because I feel like everybody's a star in their own right. But you get what I mean. Like when you have a Stephon Diggs, it's different. So why is he underrated in that regards?
I think the biggest tell is the way Diggs handled the situation when he went up and talked to him in a very calm manner. He shielded his mouth from the camera so nobody could see what he was saying. And they had a very meaningful interaction without any of the theatrics, right? To me, that was a massive sign of respect. Not only a sign of respect for Coach McDermott, but a sign of respect for Josh Allen and the other players on that team, because you know exactly what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was wide open, didn't get the ball. He was frustrated, but instead of doing, and this is why I'm hesitant on adding pieces that haven't been through it and that don't understand what's going on. Now, obviously, OBJ's had some moments where he's shown some people up, right? Hopefully Von Miller, maybe if he does come to the Bills, vets that whole thing and kind of goes through it and makes sure everything's cool. But I worry about disrupting the balance on a football team when you start adding pieces that haven't been through training camps and all of that. And, so that's a worry. But no, McDermott is a guy who's coached under some really good guys. And if you look at the coaches he's coached under, they're very, very similar. I remember McDermott because he was in Philly. Okay. He coached in Philadelphia for a while. I believe he coached quite a bit of time under Andy Reid, if I'm not mistaken. Does Andy Reid do that? Is he a guy that flips out? No, he's not. He's a very even-keeled coach. So, that NFL thing, I said it earlier, it's a big thing about respect. And you get a lot more out of your players if you show that respect. It's amazing. I played for two guys that were the exact same way. One was Marv Levy, the other one was Wade Phillips. Say what you will, but the players love both of them. It's because they treated them like men. And they knew that the players knew what they had to do. They knew the job at hand, and they let you go ahead and do it without hounding you 24/7. And you have that same type of coach in McDermott.
I think when it comes to it, I think it's underrated in the sense that, it's easy in one sense when you have a Josh Allen throw into a Stephon Diggs. You go out there and these guys perform, and it's like, okay, I'll take the credit for my guys making big plays. But then when you have moments when they're not connecting, it takes a guy like Sean McDermott to be able to say, you know what, Steph, we got you, man. We're going to make this thing, however that conversation went. And Stephon Diggs, like you said, he was able to accept what was said, and then he went out, had a touchdown the next drive, or maybe it was 2 drives later. But still, it takes the type of coach that Sean McDermott is and the type of coaches that you said you played for that will allow control of those egos. And
Right.
For me, that's huge, man. It's huge. So,
But that's what Marv did. I mean, that's why Marv was so successful. He was able to manage a team full of absolute. Look how many Hall of Famers are off those teams. He was able to manage those egos and those guys and kept them together. I see him doing the same thing with McDermott because, like, when Diggs came from Minnesota, he was labeled a problem guy. He was labeled a guy that was disgruntled and wanted out. He comes to Buffalo, and now tell me if you've seen anything like that. You haven't. And that's a respect thing. And I think he respects Coach. Coach respects the players, and it works really well together.
I love it. But then, so again, I'll rewind to the first question I asked you. So I had some concerns. I don't think that now we're going to see a breakup of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Like, I don't mean that at all, like zero. But what does concern me is I think right now Josh is in his head. And when Josh is in his head, the throws that we're used to seeing him make routinely to Stephon Diggs, there was a couple plays there where Diggs was open. One was a dig route where he was like, I feel like if he would have threw it to him, it was like second quarter, it probably would have been either a touchdown or it would have been close to it. And so I think now when you see Josh being in his head, again, if he's not driving that bus to take him where we are used to seeing them go, can this cause some type of frustration for Diggs to where he's not playing at his best ability? You played with Andre Reed, and you played with great guys.
Right.
So what is your experience when it comes to stuff like that?
You get behind closed doors and you hash it out. I mean, there was a lot of instances back in the day where guys weren't getting along and there was misunderstandings, but they had enough. They cared about each other enough to where they knew that they had to get behind closed doors and work it out. Whether that was over a beer at the Big Tree, or that was at Jim's house, or that was in the training room after a practice, it didn't matter. They figured out a way to work it out. And like I said, that's another thing. That's a respect thing, right? And you'll see that. I'm not concerned about Diggs getting upset. I'm more concerned about Josh being Josh. I get frustrated when everybody tries to make him to put him in a box, right? I get frustrated when they say, well, he can't run that much, he's going to get hurt. He gets hurt in the pocket. He doesn't get hurt running the ball, right? Yeah. They need to do this with him. They need to let the dude play. He's an outlier. He's a different type of quarterback. He is a guy, is a field quarterback that can make tremendous athletic plays, and he needs to be involved in that game. And let's quit trying to make him something he's not. Yeah. Let's ride with it the way he is. And if he plays 15 years, that's awesome. If he plays, 6-7 years, then okay, we'll go find another quarterback. But they can't continually try to make him something he's not. They got to let him play. They got to let him go. And I think that I'm not sure if behind closed seats we're trying to turn him into a pocket passer. The first 3 drives of the game we went pass. Then Josh scrambled, we passed, we punted. Then we went pass. Cooks had a run. Josh passed, punted, and then we went run, pass, and then sacked. And a big recipe for disaster as far as not having your timing offensively and struggling a little bit. And then we righted the ship. But people, please quit trying to put him in a box and just let him be Josh Allen, because, like I said, he's not in the bell curve. He's an
anomaly. Yeah, he's an anomaly for sure.
Tremendous book, by the way. If you've never read that book, Outliers, it's a wonderful book.
Okay. Before we move on, so I have a special guest coming in from Pride of Detroit. They are our brother sister company as far as SB Nation, Buffalo Rumblers, Pride of Detroit, same thing. My man Jeremy Reisman coming in. He just popped in. So before I bring him in, I did want to ask a quick question about. I posted this and really quickly. So a conversation on Twitter was getting really out of hand. Poyer, Edmonds, Oliver. If you can keep 2 and get rid of 1, who would you let go? Oliver, surprisingly, was the guy that Bills Mafia said, you know what? We're going to keep Poyer, we're going to keep Edmonds, and we're going to let Oliver walk. I can't say I disagree, but I want to know your thoughts on this. And then we'll bring my man Jeremy in, and we'll get to this Detroit game and Thanksgiving. We'll talk some food. We'll talk about what he feels like the Lions need to do to beat the Bills, and then I'll get your perspective on what you feel like the Bills need to do to beat the Lions. But let's talk about this really quickly.
Defensive linemen are like finding leprechauns at the end of a rainbow. You can't find them. You don't get rid of Ed Oliver. He's a young, disruptive D lineman that's going to do wonderful things for you down the road. Edmonds is the heart and soul of your defense. When he's not playing, the inside is weaker as far as against the run. You got to keep a guy like Edmonds. He does so much. He's so physical. I love Poyer. Unfortunately, you're making me choose one, and I'm going to choose the 10-year guy that's only going to get older, that's now seems to be injury prone. And unfortunately, that would be the guy just because of those situations.
God, Jerry, I loved you until 30 minutes and 16 seconds.
But I agree. But I agreed with what you said this week. I totally co-signed it. Poyer playing. If you can't get behind that guy, seeing what he's doing with one arm, then you shouldn't be playing. I mean, he inspired the entire defense. But when you start looking at financial situations and what you can find and can't find, it's a heck of a lot harder to find an inside dominant pass rusher than a safety in this league.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Especially a 10-year safety.
The thing is, so I'll bring Jeremy in. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll get on to the rest of the game. But before I bring Jeremy in, I do want to make sure everybody knows about my man Buffalo Freddy. He has the best freaking barbecue in Western New York, and if you don't believe me, I challenge you to go check it out. And if it's not the best brisket you've had, I promise you, I'll personally Zelle you the refund. But that's not even it. That's not even it. It's cold in Buffalo right now, but we still party better than any city, any town in America. So what do you need for your party to get it popping? Call my man up. He has tents. He has chairs. He has tables. Not for you to jump through, Buffalo, but he got tables. Next spring, next summer, hit him up for the bounce houses and anything else you need. He got the water slides. He got all that fancy stuff with the foam. He got T-shirt guns that can pop everything off. Call my man Buffalo Freddy at 7164-FREDDY. That's 716-437-3339. Hit my man up. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, my man Jeremy Reisman from Pride of Detroit. He's the beat reporter for the Detroit Lions, and he is joining us for this Thanksgiving matchup against the Buffalo Bills. What's going on, Jeremy?
Not too much. I'm thinking about getting myself a T-shirt gun now. I'm excited about that.
Man, Dan, listen, Dan is crazy, man. Like he does these tailgate parties, and it's like the tailgate is the best party of the week. Like, you would think the post-game party when you win is better. No, it's the tailgate. He's out there, man. He's giving away 1,000 pounds of meat, like pause. He's giving away all his food, and it's great. So, but let's get into this, man. So I just got off the show with you. We did a show prior to this talking about what the Bills have to do and how it looks on offense and defense. Just off the rip, how do you see for you coming into this game as a Detroit fan? How confident or how just tell me how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Lions fans are feeling pretty good right now, coming off a 3-game winning streak and beating a decent Giants team on the road. Probably not as good as their record was, but that was a team that has taken down some good teams that was playing confident and safe football, and the Lions took it to them. They were up 3 scores in the second half, ended up winning by a couple scores. So people are feeling pretty good. Like for a 4-6 team, there's a surprisingly high amount of playoff talk right now. And while that it's pretty far-fetched, there are some things that the Lions are doing well right now. They've been a good offensive team really all season. I think they have as many 30-point games as the Bills do this year. And they're starting to get back into that, and they're starting to get some players back. DJ Chark is going to have a bigger role in this week. They might get Josh Reynolds back, and they got Jamal Williams, the leading touchdown getter, rusher, I should say, in the league. And then the defense is starting to figure things out. All that being said, this is the Buffalo Bills. This is one of the best teams in the NFL, and the Lions haven't really beaten a team of their caliber yet. And so I personally think it's kind of a mismatch so far, but the Lions are playing confident football right now. They're playing sound football right now. They're a very physical team. And when you get teams out of their comfort zone and you kind of pop them in the mouth, especially if they're not expecting it, some weird things can happen, especially on a short week. So I wouldn't say I'm confident that the Lions can win this game, but I feel like they can compete in it.
Jerry Ostroski, and I just had a quick question for you. When I look at the Lions, and obviously it's kind of wild when you see Dan Campbell. And I know he was a tight end, but he preaches physicality and those types of things. 6th offensively in the NFL, but dead last in defense. I find that hard to believe, considering and Chris Spielman's a part of this franchise right now. And I have to ask you this. Chris, a guy I got to meet when he was in Buffalo. Malcolm Rodriguez is a kid that I watched play high school football in Wagner, Oklahoma. I watched him win state championships as a wrestler. Obviously, he goes on to Oklahoma State, has a great career. when I saw that pick, the first thing I thought of was that wasn't the scouting department's pick, or that wasn't Dan Campbell's pick. That was Chris Spielman's pick.
Yeah.
And, build that defense around an overachieving tough guy like Malcolm Rodriguez. Do you have, you got Hutchinson there. Do you have the pieces now to continue to get better on defense under Aaron Glenn? Because I find it difficult to believe that you'll be poor defensively with Spielman involved in the franchise.
Yeah, that's certainly the hope. And this is one of the youngest defenses you'll find in the NFL. I think they're second in rookie defensive snaps this year. They're starting rookie safety. They're starting a rookie linebacker in Malcolm Rodriguez. They're starting Aiden Hutchinson. The other edge, who probably won't play in this game, Josh Paschal, is also a starter. And so you throw in a couple second-year guys. It's just a really young defense that's making a lot of kind of mental mistakes that you would expect out of young players. And so on paper, it looks really bad, but they are getting better. Interestingly enough, they fired their defensive backs coach 3 weeks ago, and they've been 3-0 since. And really a lot of that has been on the heels of their defense. They picked off Aaron Rodgers 3 times. They picked off Daniel Jones, who only had 2 interceptions going into the game. They picked him off twice. And so they're starting to get the turnovers. That's really what's kind of been at the forefront of this defensive turnaround the past 3 weeks. I think they have 7 turnovers in the past 3 games. And so, yeah, they are starting to catch on. And I think Aaron Glenn was a guy who was obviously coming under a lot of fire because they weren't much better in his first year last year. But now they're starting to turn the corner a little bit, and now they kind of have some of those cornerstone players like Aiden Hutchinson, like Malcolm Rodriguez, like their safety Kirby Joseph won Defensive Player of the Week a couple weeks ago. So they kind of have those cornerstones at each level of the defense. Now it's all about kind of bringing it all together, getting all of those players the experience that they need. Like that's another thing is they might not be playing that well right now, but they're getting valuable experience so that next year it's not as much of a mental overload as it is this year.
Right.
Let me ask you this, because earlier, like I said, we talked on your show, and one of the things that kind of stood out to me was like the strength versus what you appear and what now Lions fans will probably appear to feel like is a weakness. So you got some injuries on your offensive line, and I think even with the possibility of AJ Epinesa not playing, or the possibility of Greg Rousseau not playing, I still think obviously Von Miller, I think Daquan Jones, I think Tim Settle, I think they bring a type of energy that if you guys are going to be playing backups, or you mentioned earlier, like it'll be his first game potentially playing, I think it could be a rough day for you guys. What do you think about the matchup of the defensive line of the Bills versus the offensive line of the Lions?
Yeah, I'll start with the good on the Lions, and that's the offensive tackles. I think Taylor Decker is maybe one of the most underrated left tackles in the league. He's one of the best pass protectors in the leagues. So in terms of run defense, but he hasn't given up a pressure in 2 straight weeks. And then you got Penei Sewell, who's just kind of a beast. Arguably the best right tackle in football. He's a mauler in the run game. They like to run him around too. They had him lined up at wide receiver last week for a wide receiver bubble. Didn't end up working. He ended up getting a block in the back on the play, but that just goes to show like how they're building their offense around a right tackle. Like that's literally what they're doing because he's such a weapon. The problem is in the interior this week because Frank Ragnow, again, maybe a top 5 player at his position. He's been battling a toe injury all season. He's been playing through it and playing well, and he'll play this week almost certainly. But the guards are where the problem is because they're essentially running on guard 5 and 6 because their starters have been long gone. Halapuli Vati Vaitai was put on IR at the beginning of the season, never played a game. Jonah Jackson this week is dealing with a concussion, so he won't play. He's a guy who was a Pro Bowler last year, so that's a big loss. Then you got your backup, Tommy Kramer. He's been on IR the entire season. And then Evan Brown suffered an ankle injury last week. So literally your top 4 guards are out of this game, and that leaves you with basically Dan Skipper, a guy who had played offensive tackle his entire career. They moved him to guard this year. A mauler guy. He comes with like an incredible, and that's really across the board. All these guys are maulers. They're run defenders at pure heart. They like to take the attack to the defense. So he's okay at that. Not a great pass protector. And the same thing goes for Logan Stenberg, a guy they drafted a few years back. And again, he played at Kentucky. They were a very run-heavy offense. That's where his mindset is. PFF has him at a 0.7 PF pass blocking grade. And I know a lot of people have their complaints about PFF grades. That's accurate. He's been a turnstile as a pass blocker. It's been kind of disastrous. And so they've benched him a couple times, which is why they might move to the guy that I mentioned has never started an NFL game before. His name is Coyote Iwosika. I can't tell you a lot about the guy because I just haven't seen that much out of him. He wasn't even with the team in training camp, so I didn't even get to see him then. So if he's starting, I don't know what to expect. But all I know is like the mindset of all these guys is run first. And so I think that's probably going to be heavily the game plan is they know these guys can run blocks. So let's try to run the football.
Is this a situation, and kind of building upon what I talked about earlier, it's between the Ford family not really having the resources or wanting to use the resources to go out and get a ton of free agents. And this team is building around the draft and young guys, and that's why you bring a Dan Campbell in. You're going to preach toughness, togetherness, and try to build this team on guys that maybe you're making fifth-year options on contracts, or you're trying to bring in some younger guys. Because it just kind of makes sense, because when you look at a team of if you're going to get a ton of free agents, being overly physical in practice, those types of things, you're not really going to lure them in. So it doesn't shock me that running the football and being physical up front is their MO, because it seems to me that's kind of how the franchise is rolling.
Yeah, no question. And yeah, they've been kind of limited in their cap situations. The last regime didn't leave a lot of good contracts on the book. They're paying a lot of guys that aren't even here, big contracts. So they definitely went light in back-to-back free agencies under their new general manager, Brad Holmes. I think a lot of it is they're handing out 1-year deals to kind of feel each other out, almost like feel the free agent out, like, hey, is this the kind of environment you want to be in long term? We'll give you a year to figure it out. And for the Lions to also figure out, hey, are you the kind of guy that we want around long term? And are you maybe worth more than what you're getting on the free agent market? It worked with a guy like Charles Harris, who had been kind of a bust through the first 3 years of his career, had a really good 2021 season. Unfortunately, he's dealing with injuries this year and hasn't been able to do it. Khalif Raymond is another guy. He's the third or fourth receiver, but played really well when injuries hit last year, and so they brought him back. Josh Reynolds is another. So I think the first 2 years they've just really had such an extreme focus on the culture to make sure that was not an issue going forward, so that when they start adding guys that maybe aren't perfect fits with the culture that might rock the boat a little bit, they have a foundation where people can kind of set them straight. And so that's where I think they are right now in terms of roster building, is like, okay, we got the culture set now this year. We're starting to get some of those wins so that people are actually believing that the culture can lead to wins. And then moving forward, I think maybe you'll see them be a little more aggressive in free agency. You'll see them being a little bit more unconventional and not just getting Dan Campbell guys beat, kneecap biters, that whole thing. I think they're going to venture out a little bit of that next year.
Let me ask you this about the game again. So you got some guys coming back from injury on the offense, some receivers that will potentially play a big role in anything offensively you guys are going to do. Obviously, I know the run game is the run game. You got Swift, you got Williams back there. Williams is playing big time this year. He's actually, when you're not playing against the Bills, he's one of my favorite players. And I actually have receipts, man. I can show. Matter of fact, when we get done, I'm gonna send them to you on Twitter in the DM. I said in the season, like, yo, Williams is gonna have one of the best years out of any running back, and he's proven me right. I look smart because of him. I'm not, but outside of the run game, you got some receivers coming back.
Yeah,
we got some injuries, and Trey White still isn't back. I think Kyer Elam's going to play. Jordan Poyer is going to play, but Micah Hyde's out for the year. Tremaine Edmonds, I don't think he's going to play. It looks like he hasn't practiced both days this week.
No,
he has a groin in the heel injury. I think he's out. So when you look at certain things like that and you look at those injuries, what is your train of thought going into this game as far as receivers versus our secondary?
Well, I mean, first the passing game starts and really finishes with Amon-Ra St. Brown. The guy is just kind of a beast. He can attack you at all levels of the field, especially the middle of the field. And if you're missing, maybe you're one of your best cover linebackers, maybe that's where you attack. And he's just so good at everything, and they use him in so many different ways. A lot of times they'll just use him as a pass blocker or run blocker because he's so tenacious. You want to talk about a Dan Campbell guy, that guy is him through and through. They'll throw him in the backfield. They'll give him some carries. They'll use him as eye candy on end arounds and things like that. So he's really kind of the guy that they center the passing attack around. But DJ Chark is back after last week, and he's their deep threat. And the Lions really haven't unleashed that part of their offense this year, really at all. Even earlier in the year when the passing game was moving and they were scoring 30 in back-to-back weeks, that was one thing that they hadn't really connected on yet. And it was something that we did see in training camp. Him and Goff really seemed to actually have something going. And then Shark has the ankle injury in week 3 and basically hasn't been back since. So maybe that's something that they recapture in this game, or at least try to recapture. He took one deep shot to DJ Chark last week against the Giants, but in a windy environment, it wasn't a very good pass and it was almost picked off. So that's something they might try to get back to. And then Josh Reynolds has kind of really been the key that's unlocked Goff. They obviously go back to their Rams days, back when they were both in LA. The Lions picked him up off waivers last year, and it really was kind of the start of a turnaround. They have very good chemistry. So if he can play this week, and he's missed the past few weeks with the back injury, I think that's almost like his safety valve in a way, especially since TJ Hawkinson is no longer there. I think he really trusts Josh Reynolds. He really has good chemistry with him. So if it's not Amon-Ra St. Brown and they aren't taking a deep shot, it's almost certainly going to be going to Josh Reynolds.
Jerry, let me ask you this as a follow-up to that question to Jeremy. So on the flip now, because I just mentioned some of the injuries that the Bills have been dealing with, and we've shuffled some things around. We saw Cam Lewis back there trying to cover Justin Jefferson. I don't know why. I love you, Cam. But I don't know why we were trying to have Cam cover Justin Jefferson. But we've been shuffling things around. We've had some injuries with, like, Kyer Elam has been out. I think he'll be back. On the flip side now, how confident are you about the Bills going into this game against Detroit's weapons?
What am I going to do first? I'm always going to look at your front lines. I'm going to look in the trenches. I'm going to see what it's about. And if Jeremy's not lying to me, they're pretty banged up front. And, especially at the guard spot. And we got guys like Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips. Jordan gets tremendous push up the middle on the pass rush. I think our biggest thing is we're going to have to get to the passer. We're going to have to get home. We're going to have to get to Goff. I think historically, when he's off his spot, he's not comfortable, and he would much rather be more of a Tom Brady type quarterback than a Josh Allen type quarterback. So that's where this game, to me, is going to make the biggest difference. Can we get up for our front seven? Can we get consistent pressure against a weaker offensive line? That's when I say weaker because of injury. Those guys are going to have to play a tremendous game. They're all going to have to go get turkey legs after the game to win this game, right? It's going to be one of those deals where they're all sitting over there talking together on the mic. So that's where I look at it. Our pass rush against their offensive line.
Okay. And so, Jeremy, I have a question for you in the comments from Sarah Larson, co-host of the 3-Man Rush Show. She asked you, why in the world would your team trade Hawkinson away? And that's a question that, Richard Rush is like, I wondered the same doggone thing.
Yeah.
What happened with that, man? Why?
It's an interesting question. And I think part of it is they weren't willing to spend the money on him. The tight end market has kind of exploded as of recently. I want to say David Njoku got something like 13 million or something a year.
Yeah.
And so, the Lions were expecting him to essentially be asking for something like that. And he was going to be entering his 5th year option next year for 9-point-something million, I think is the estimate on that. So I guess they just didn't think he was necessarily worth that. And because they are kind of that run identity kind of team, he really isn't the run blocker that he was billed at as Iowa. He hasn't been the two-way player that I think they were expecting him to grow into. He's been more of a receiver, and even that he's been a little bit inconsistent. And so we'll see how it works out in Minnesota. It's kind of been up and down so far, I think, with him. But he isn't a guy that gets a lot of separation. He isn't a guy that blocks particularly well. And so I don't think the Lions were willing to spend 14-15 million a year on a guy like that. And so instead you essentially don't even pick up a draft pick. They basically swap 2 for 2, but they upgraded 2 draft picks. And with this team trying to build for the future, I think that might actually turn out to be the savvy move, even though it looks weird for a team that's trying to build through talented youth to trade away a talented 25-year-old tight end. But I think it was a cost-effective move, essentially.
See, there's a lot of people in the comments that's talking about how Knox got the. Remember, I mentioned to you how Knox got paid, and he's not giving us the type. If Knox could give us Hawkinson production, you wouldn't hear me complain about anything. Jerry, what is your opinion on the tight end? And then I feel like you had another question or follow up. So after we talk about the tight ends, then you can kind of go ahead with what you had.
Well, tight end wise, I was going to say, I mean, if you're a tight end that likes to catch the ball and not block, I mean, really, are you playing for the worst head coach you could possibly play for? I mean, Dan Campbell was a guy that was a mauler. He was an overachiever guy that played a lot of years in the NFL, was a great player. You better be able to block if you're going to play for him at that spot. But no, I look at tight end production, and I think a lot of tight end production, especially in Buffalo, has to do with how the offense is called. I'm not necessarily sure that Knox is the second, third. Sometimes I think he might be the third, fourth choice. I know he's got a lot of grief as far as production, but also you're looking at a different guy that's calling plays and a different guy that's drawing up the offense as well. So until we go in meeting rooms and see about philosophy, I'm not quite sure that maybe his production has something to do more with how the theory of the offense is being called in Buffalo as opposed to him himself. As far as that goes. But no, what I was going to say earlier is if, kind of flipping the script, you look at a Buffalo Bills team that's been number one offensively in the NFL for a while. Now they're second, and you're playing the 32nd ranked defense in the league. Now, granted, weird things happen in Detroit on Thanksgiving. What does this team do if at the end of the day, like I said, they're over there eating a bunch of turkey legs? What have they done to win this football game?
Turnovers, right? I feel like that's been the key for their 3-game winning streak, and it's something that Josh Allen occasionally has an issue with, right?
Yes.
I think the Bills have 17, 18 turnovers on the year, which is second or third most in the NFL, and so that's always an easy recipe to win, right? They say it all the time. The team that wins a turnover battle typically wins a football game, and the Lions have been creating some turnovers. And part of that is due to, like I said, those young, talented players. Some of that has been to getting a little disruption. And I think, this Bills offensive line has a little bit of vulnerability themselves in it, right? The center, Mitch Morse, might miss this game. And the Lions are coming off a game in which Aleem McNeil, their third round pick last year, had 10 pressures from the defensive tackle position. He's a 320-pound guy, and he had 10 pressures against the Giants. Game of his life. He might even win Defensive Player of the Week with the way he played. So that's a guy to look out for. If he can create pressure up the middle, even a guy like Josh Allen might have a tough time escaping that. With a 320-pound guy, he might actually be able to bring down a big guy like Josh Allen too. Right. So that's the key, right? Pressure the quarter. It's the same as the Bills are going to try to do against Jared Goff, except Jared Goff is going to be a much easier guy to track down.
How has Hutchinson's development been, as far as how do the Lions feel that his development is coming along, being the second overall pick in the draft, and where he is at this point? We're almost at the halfway point of the season.
Yeah, I think they're very happy. He isn't the Bosa type where he has all these pass rush moves and he's just an absolute terror in terms of pass rush, but he's improved basically everywhere else. He has 2 interceptions on the season. His interception last week was phenomenal. He dropped back into coverage and it was a fingertip catch. And he's really made big play after big play in this 3-game stretch. The interception against Aaron Rodgers in the end zone, against the Bears. He read a screenplay that caused Justin Fields to double clutch. He ended up throwing a pick 6 on that play, pretty much all due to Aiden Hutchinson. And then last week he gets that pick and a fumble recovery. So he's really been making big plays and big moments. And yeah, it's been inconsistent here and then. And yeah, he's not going to be the most elite pass rusher in the league or anything like that. But he's really starting to, you can really see the game slowing down for him. You can really see him starting to recognize concepts and see when teams are trying to draw him away with eye candy and things like that. He's starting to really see plays before they develop. And that's getting him to be in the right position to make those big plays. So I think they're very happy with where he's at. Like I said, he's not the typical top 3 pass rusher in the league. I don't think that's necessarily even his ceiling or what he does best. No. But he's just such an instinctive player, and you're starting to see that part of the game come out and result in some big plays.
It's just, to me, it's going to be a fun game. You guys host this game every year. So I'm sure you'll be at the game. You're a beat reporter, so you cover the team. Overall, just on a more fun, I guess, a more fun conversation and not competitive. What's typically every year? What is what's the energy like down there at Ford Field, man? Like, is Detroit known for tailgating like Buffalo, and is the party is good? And what do you expect out of the fan bases? Because I know, like, Sarah's in the comments. She's been there. She stayed. She was there this past Sunday for the game, and she was like, "Forget this. I'm staying. I'm not leaving and coming back." So, what do you expect to see out of Bills Mafia and out of the Detroit Lions fan base?
Yeah, no, I'm sure Bills Mafia is going to show up, right? They were. I heard, I didn't go to the game last week myself, but I heard they were pretty darn loud in Ford Field last week, which was cool to see. Like, honestly, because I do like the Bills a lot, and they're a team that have had their rough patches, and I always like to see when teams do that and turn it around, because it makes me think one day the Lions might be there. But no, Thanksgiving is obviously an extremely special moment in Detroit. That they have their Thanksgiving parade that happens before the game, and this is our one time to be in the spotlight, right? The Lions don't get the spotlight very often. They don't have a primetime game at all this season. This is the only time they're going to be on national TV, unless somehow they get flexed down the stretch here. So yeah, it's a hugely important game to the culture of Detroit. It's a moment of pride, even though every year it seems we have the conversation of, why are the Lions on Thanksgiving? We got to move the Lions off Thanksgiving. But it's something that, like, you'll have to pry from our cold dead hands. Like, it means that much to us. And listen, there's a lot of optimism right now. People like Dan Campbell's an extremely likable guy. This team is on a 3-game winning streak, and people are talking playoffs. I know it's crazy. I've gotten caught up on some of this, but this team has been on the road the past 2 weeks, so they haven't even, we haven't even seen this Ford Field crowd on this winning streak. And so I think it's going to be super loud. There'll be plenty of Bills fans there, but I think Lions fans are going to be loud and proud, and maybe the loudest we've seen that stadium in a few years, because 4-6 honestly is the best record we've had in quite some time here in Detroit. So they're going to be ready.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to watching it. Listen, we're going to get on out of here. Before we do, I do want to know, you got to tell me, I'm asking both of you. We can start with Jerry to end off with Jeremy here. What's the best side on Thanksgiving? Because I get it. It's Turkey Day. Everybody loves turkey, but the sides are what make the meal. What's your favorite side, Jerry?
My family makes a Pennsylvania Dutch potato stuffing that is tremendous. It's like a mashed potatoes with bread and everything. You bake it. It's wonderful. It's the best of both worlds. Stuffing or dressing and mashed potatoes, and you put them together. So that's my favorite.
That just made me hungry right now.
Right?
We go, hey, as I'm sure it's not a shock, we go hard. We go hard on Thanksgiving now. So,
well, Jeremy, what about you, man? So after the game, because I know, again, it's a tradition. You guys go every year. But then after the game, when you get home and finally get that food, what's the side that sets that plate off for you?
Well, first off, I'll say Ford Field for the press does a pretty good Thanksgiving. Like, I've been impressed with the way they do that. So I kind of get to double dip. So I get to eat during the game and after the game. But I don't know, Jerry kind of stole my thunder, because I was going to say either mashed potatoes or stuffing. I didn't know you could put them together. So now that's my new answer, I think. But if I have to answer something different, like, I just go straight to dessert. Pumpkin pie to me is one of the best fall foods there is. So I might just, I'll load up on turkey, mashed potatoes, and stuffing at the game, and then I'll just hit up the pumpkin pie on the way home.
I hear that. I can't be mad at either one. I'm more of a sweet potato pie fan myself, but I
got two coming, Spence. I got a lady named Tracy making me two. I get them tomorrow.
I need to holler at Tracy. I need to call Tracy myself. But I understand the pumpkin pie love as well. There's no hate there. But then also, if I'm gonna step aside that, because I combine the two, my sweet potato pie and the baked mac and cheese, like, and it has to be like good baked mac and cheese.
Yes,
you combine the two, and it's magical, man. So, but let's get on out of here, Jeremy. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you? You do some amazing work. You got some great content. Let everybody know where they can find you and where they can find your work.
Yeah, appreciate that. PrideOfDetroit.com is where you can find all of our Detroit Lions content. We have a ton of awesome writers, very thorough with everything that we do there. And then, in terms of like podcast and video content, we're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/PrideOfDetroit. We'll be doing a Madden simulation tomorrow night, Wednesday night, which is just a really funny, silly thing that we do to see who's going to win the game. Although the Madden's been wrong the past 4 weeks, so maybe whoever loses the Madden sim is going to win on Thursday. So twitch.tv/PrideOfDetroit, and then you can find me on Twitter at DetroitOnLion.
All right, and big O Jerry, let everybody know. Actually, before I have you kind of tell everything that you do great. Tomorrow night for the Hump Day Hotline,
Yes.
Big O, so Big Jerry here and Sarah Larson will be joining myself and my man Joe Miller. We're going to do a crossover show. So instead of it being the 1 hour, you might get an hour and a half, you might get 2 hours. It just depends on how we feel. I might have to grab some Crown and just go through the whole thing. But we're going to have some fun. Jerry, let everybody know where they can find you, what you got coming up aside from tomorrow night, and let's get on to it.
You can find me at Ostroski_Big O. That's my Twitter page. And then also we have a three-man rush Twitter as well. Sarah Larson and I on live on Thursday nights. We are on live at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. And right now, Sarah and I, we're in a little bit of a transition. But same great college football content, a little bit of Bills sprinkled in. And I am big time excited about tomorrow night. That should be a good one. And I'm a little bit ahead of you on the Crown scene, so I'll be back with a vengeance.
Okay, well we'll see how it goes tomorrow because I'm gonna be right there with you. But look, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate y'all joining me and my guests tonight for the Code of Conduct. Please join me tomorrow for the Hump Day Hotline with my man, The Voice, Joe Miller. And y'all know how I do it over here with the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. Y'all take care of each other, love each other, and live in peace. And as always, stay positive, test negative. Go Bills.
Code of Conduct.